Welcome to our monthly eProcurement workshop. I'm Pam Walker-Smith. I work for the Department of Procurement Services. My title is Project Coordinator. I've been employed in my department 30 plus years. I've seen a lot of things, a lot of implementations in development, a lot of administrative changes, of course. This being the most latest and greatest of our newest endeavors is the eProcurement process. What that is when I started here, 87, I was supervisor of the word processing unit. And the word processing unit would type the bids, solicitations to paper that you would come down to room 103, which is now 103, then it was 3M and on the 4th floor, to the bid openings, and you get a paper bid. The vendor would come to pick up a bid in bid and bond room, take that stack of paper home and go through each page, and you have to return the entire stack of paper back to the bid room for the date of bid opening, and then the bids are read in the bid and bond room. Well, now that entire process is electronic, and that was mandated and implemented by former Mayor Ron Emanuel, probably back in 2014. I say probably 2014. It could have been before that because, there's roundtable conversation before implementation is even began in development and fact finding and all of that. So we went into training around 2015. We started our first pilot in 2016. Mind you, I was out of the office. I had a double hip replacement in 2015, and when I returned back to work 6 months after recovery, we were in training for eProcurement. So my feet have been on the floor with skates on since 2015 with the development of eProcurement, because my job then changed to where I manage and maintain the City of Chicago's vendor database, as well as at that time, I was also managing the Security Administrative Services unit within procurement, who was the administrative hub to the procurement department, all things contractual related. So I got to see this from the ground floor, and it was very, very exciting that we went from a paper process to an electronic process, and all that goes in between the development of that, all the conversations that are had that you have to have with each entity that's involved in the contractual process. So we are very, very proud of our eProcurement process and our electronic solicitation process, and that's why we hold these workshops, because it's 2019, so we're kind of 2 years new, but we have most of our contract types already in eProcurement. So what are contract types? Commodities, work services, construction, those are we don't have work services yet. We're piloting that one. We're piloting RFPs, but right now we're piloting vehicles and heavy equipment, which means we're in the development of those contract types. But on the street right now are all of our construction. We started with the most popular type of contract type, the construction contracts, and then we went to commodities, which is a work service type of contract, and so those are now out on the street and our small orders. So there's a time where you can look when you're looking at bids out on procurement's website, our solicitations that are opening, our paper bids. When you look at them, you will see there'll be less and less paper bids being advertised, because the method for electronic advertisement and the paper bids are totally different, and so they sit in different places, for which I'll only be speaking to the electronic ones, but I will show you where they're at. So this this workshop is to have you to become familiar with the eProcurement process from our homepage all the way to, we will go through, I'll do a live demonstration of how to submit an electronic solicitation. Okay, so right here, this is our iSupplier portal. This was developed for our vendors as your holy grail to eProcurement, right? And it speaks to the login and registration process, all of our current bid and solicitation opportunities, online training materials, our delegate departments. The caveat to the eProcurement process for the delegates was really monumental because the delegate agency vendors department process for their vendors is way different. A lot of the delegates process grant funded, so they went through a whole nother methodology that I can't speak to because it's never been my business to know how the delegates work, but and how what their business process is. But they were grant funded. They're grant funded contracts, so their process is different. But Prior Mayor Emanuel wanted all of the solicitation processes, all of the contracts to be handled the same method that procurement does, through the bidding process. So the delegates have to go through a whole nother training to learn how to prepare their contracts for bidding, to put them out on the street for bidding, and to award. So it took them a while to get warm and fuzzy with the process, and now they're doing great. We do work together. In the beginning, we held workshops together because we were trying to get everybody as a whole in to learn the process because it was so new. So they're doing great. So if you're a delegate vendor, I can't speak to that. And what delegates, again, are vendors who do a public service work. That's different from doing a contract service work for the city. Delegates, their funding sources are grant funded, so it's different than our funding sources and how the city contracts are led. So I can't speak to that really, but if you are a delegate vendor, you have a placeholder right here on the portal that will explain all things to you, and also their workshops. They may be listed down here as well. Yeah. So the delegate agencies training dates are here in November and in December. And we have one training left, procurement does, and it's November the 7th. It will be our last training of the year. So this portal will also, we have a help menu here, and we'll go over all of those aspects to the end of the training. And this is a good time, it's early, I hope I can get it all done. So, in order to be an iSupplier vendor, you can already be a vendor with the City of Chicago, meaning that you already have an established vendor number. You've done business with the city before. Our business process changed some years ago where at first you can be a prospective bidder, being that you don't have a contract with the City of Chicago, but you would like to have a vendor number. You can just send us an email or write us a letter, and we just prepare you a vendor number. Then that process stopped. It ended. We could no longer process a prospective bidder. You had to have a contract with the City of Chicago in order to have a vendor number. Vendor numbers are not transferable between the City of Chicago, CPS, CHA, CTA, or any of our sister agencies. Your vendor number for the City of Chicago is for you to do business with the City of Chicago. Now that we have eProcurement, we reverted back to that process. So just imagine how large is our vendor database. It was already humongous in the before, and so then and we tried to clean up the vendor databases. I can't even imagine the warehouse that houses all this data. And so we stopped that process, and then we began it again with the eProcurement process, being that if you are interested in doing business with the city, you first have to get a vendor number. If you are interested in being if you're interested in bidding on an electronic solicitation, you must have a vendor number with the City of Chicago, so i.e. the iSupplier portal. So what you do first is you go to our portal and you register. Now, there are two things. You can register because you do not have a vendor number with the City of Chicago, and automatically you become an iSupplier vendor after your data information is looked at. Or if you are currently a vendor with the City of Chicago, but you are not an iSupplier portal vendor, then you can request an invitation, and that is via email. So here at the login and registration link that is right here, when you log in, you'll be logging into Oracle. But for registration, you click on register. I'm sorry, I already have that up. So it speaks to vendor registration, and it's informing you that, again, any licenses, certificates, ID numbers that you may have with our sister agencies being city colleges, CHA, Park District, public schools, the CTA, MacPeer, or PBC, our Public Building Commission, any of those licenses, certificates, vendor numbers that you may have with them are not interchangeable with the City of Chicago. The only thing that is interchangeable with the City of Chicago is the Cook County. If you are already a certified MBE, WBE, that certification does transfer over to the City of Chicago. Again, if you already have a vendor number with the city, you may not have done business with the city in many years, long time. You used to do business with the city, you haven't done business with the city, but you do have an established vendor number, then you can request an invitation. You click on this box right here, it'll go to a dedicated mailbox. Clerical team will then collect all the mail, read the emails, and then they will forward you. We will first check to ensure that you do have a vendor number, and then we will forward you an invitation. That process is a little bit simpler. In the event that you do not, I believe I opened it up, but since I clicked on it, I don't know what I did. Let me go to register. Okay, I'm sorry. Right here at the new vendor registration, I didn't open that up because it is asking for a lot of information. Two things very important. New vendor registration, to register as an iSupplier portal vendor, you must include your FEIN number and your copy, a PDF of your W-9. In order to submit an electronic solicitation, you must have already entered your EDS number. So you must have obtained your EDS, and your number must go on your solicitation. Okay, so those are two things that you must do in order to become, to be an iSupplier member. One is your W-9, that gets you your vendor number registration, and the other is for bid solicitation. You must have an electronic disclosure statement on record. Our next link is current bids and solicitation opportunities. Here at current bids and solicitation opportunities, it's chock full of information right here. This orange bar right here speaks to all of our e-bids, our electronic bids and solicitation. Down here, this speaks to our pre-bid and our pre-submittal conferences. What that is electronic solicitations, most of them must have a pre-bid, being that you are invited to speak, to hear about the solicitation by the music department, who's letting out the solicitation, and the procurement specialist who is putting the solicitation together for the music department. So there are engineers there and developers there, procurement services is there, and they'll speak to all the requirements, the detailed specs, the detailed specs, the special conditions, the proposal pages of the solicitation. When there is a pre-bid conference. So they speak to it to inform you and answer any questions that you may have about the solicitation. So we strongly encourage you to come to any pre-bid conference that is held for solicitation of your interest. Non-eProcurement bid and solicitation opportunities, this link here is for all paper bids. Okay, so anything that's paper. Of course, you can also find that our bids information on procurement's website as well. So I'm only speaking to the iSupplier portal page. Here is it speaking to the company's not registered. We do encourage all of our vendors who are currently who currently has a vendor number with the City of Chicago to register as an iSupplier vendor so that you can submit an electronic solicitation, because we would expect that by the end of 2020, all of our contract types will be electronic bids, and so we won't have any more paper bids. We endeavor to get that far. We do still have some. Here we speak to online training materials. Our online training materials is for you, the vendor. Whatever issue or matter that you may have with the portal, when you log in, after you've registered, you have your user ID and your login number, all things pertaining to the eProcurement, the Oracle page, and your information is right here. And we even have a little tab for our relevant agencies as well. So registration and your profile update, that speaks to your vendor record. Caveat, vendors change their address, add contact name, want to change their business name. Generally that comes through a clerical department in procurement via Form F5A, B, and or C, and the changes are made by them, by procurement personnel. Now, with eProcurement, the vendors are able to update their own vendor record. So yay, we love that part. And we invite you to do that, because who better know? Why wait for a clerical team to get to it when you can do it yourself, when at your advantage, when you want to? So what happens with that is that even if you do change your name, change your vendor name, or if you add an address or you inactivate an old address, because we found that when we started eProcurement, that a lot of the vendor information that we were testing with was the data was real old. Addresses were no longer active. Businesses were no longer a business anymore. They had gone out of business. So we found it very advantageous for the vendor to be able to go in and clean up their data record. And the feedback on that is that they like that, because the City of Chicago is housing old information, and who better knows in-house than the vendor where their actual business location is at, and or where they want their checks to be sent to. So now that's an advantage for you, the vendor. This middle one is all things about the bid solicitation as well as your responses. So I'm not sure how the dialogue went prior to eProcurement. If you picked up a paper bid and you had questions about the solicitation, probably you could call the vendor and you can call the procurement specialist and speak to them. Now there's online discussion. If you have any questions about the solicitation after the pre-submittal has been had before the bid opens, when you have questions, those questions are taken from the vendor and put on an online discussion so that all the vendor community can see what the question that one vendor may have had pertaining to a solicitation. So in case that vendor may have had the same question, now everybody's informed all at the same time. or it can be a conversation, online discussion between just the vendor and the buyer, or it could be an online discussion between the vendor, between all the vendors together and the procurement specialist who's responsible for the solicitation. So here, everything that you may want to do pertaining to preparing your solicitation, any help that you may need, is all right here. So we will help you if you call us or if you send us an email and say, hey, I don't know how. We will answer your questions. Some of us will walk you through the process. For those who can walk you through in the department, will walk you through the process, but we're also going to direct you to the iSupplier portal to online training so that you can be self-sufficient. You may wake up at 12 o'clock with a bright idea and say, ooh, let me go back and change this. You can do that. And if you have an issue with it or a question about it, you can come here to the online training material and look at that. So what it is here where you see words, that's a link. It'll give you a PDF. Here where you see video, if you click on video, you can watch the video. Watch the video on how to, or read it on how to. I tell you, I feel like I'm making money. Are there any vendors in here who are currently vendors with the city of Chicago? Okay, you guys are you an iSupplier portal vendor? You have access to Oracle? Yeah.
I'm pretty sure.
You're pretty sure?
Yeah, I mean, I've been able to go in and download RFPs off of Oracle, so.
Oh, well, I'll show you that.
So we're mainly work with Department of Transportation, and a lot of the requests have been paper. We submit paper, our proposals. We have been, so I don't know if that's still in the process of shifting over. We haven't submitted anything online. Right.
Is it construction?
It's engineering services.
Okay.
So,
RFP. All right.
Yeah.
Okay. The RFP process will be a pilot.
Okay.
Yes. So yes, you're right. We do have a specialist who is working on the pilot program now for architectural engineering.
Okay, that makes sense.
So in the event that if you want to speak to somebody or if you want to send an email, now procurement, you can send an email to eProcurement support. We call it eProc support. That mailbox generally comes directly to me. I answer my emails. I try to give it within a 3-day time. I try to respond to all emails, but sometimes it may take up to a week depending on if we're in training or something going on. Like yesterday, I was out of the office from 9 o'clock until 4:30. So I still have to answer what is ever in my email box from yesterday, because we did a workshop for our using departments. That's like I'm doing one for vendors today. On another aspect, we did financials and how to prepare requisitions for a solicitation for our using department from yesterday. So it was all day long. So sometimes I can't adhere to my 3-day rule, but I do the best I can. I will call you if your question is really up close and personal, and I think that you need personal attention. I will call you and we'll get your answer or get you logged in or get your solicitation up before 11 o'clock or it gets that serious. So that happens. Anything financial, let's just say you went to in the vendor portion of the portal, you can look at your contracts, payments, invoices, and you see a discrepancy there. Anything invoices, anything financial, you can send an email here to invoices and payments, and they will respond to you. Procurement, we can't speak to the financial part about it. But if you have, your old contracts, it doesn't have to be anything new, it can be old, everything. If you are iSupplier portal vendor, any of your existing contracts are online, are there for you to look at your payments and your invoices. Right now, you cannot upload invoices to us. The delegate departments can, but our contractual vendors cannot. If you need login assistance, like you forgot your password, you can reset it yourself. So you would click the link that says forgot password, and it'll walk you through changing it. All things delegate agency, they have to go to OBM GMU. So what I'm going to do, abstract. All right, let's go back. Here, when you click on the eProcurement bid and solicitation opportunities, you'll get what we call abstract. What the abstract is, it is the listing of active bid openings. Okay. So these are the bids that are due to open. One opened, oh, that's question. So they're in the future. And from left to right, it speaks to the department, who the contract is for, the type of contract being a commodity. Procurement, we don't use the program model that is for delegate agencies because they have many programs in one solicitation. They have several programs in one solicitation. Here you have your solicitation number. Please note that right here, let's just say this is one number, 6774. Let's take this one. It's 7024, comma 1. The comma preceding the number, I think the software has been uploaded or something because it is really just missing. Like it's in the way. So this 7024, that is your solicitation number. The 7024 is the original solicitation number before an amendment, before a clarification. Anything that comes after the number, a comma and a number, that means something has happened. It's an amendment, it's an addendum, or it's a clarification, okay? It's something for you to know, so you will have to acknowledge it. I'll speak to that later. Then you have your specification number. There is your solicitation title. Notice that the solicitation title is preceded by the specification number. So you're always going to see the spec number and then the title of it. And that's the same manner that we will want you to upload your attachments. When you upload an attachment, because an attachment is going to be required of some sort, the title of it will be your spec number and whatever it is, insurance certificate, W-9, EDS, something of that nature. That lets the specialist know that that your attachment is for the spec number. And the reason why we use the spec number is because prior to eProcurement, the spec was the lead, right? Well, now in eProcurement, there's an RFQ number too. And the RFQ number simply means that this is the electronic solicitation. Don't confuse that with an actual RFQ, which is a request for qualifications, a contract type, actually. But we use that name as well for the solicitation document. So remember to always lead your title with your spec number for anything that you're uploading. Here, this column, you have your advertisement date, and your advertisement date is the same date as the supplier response start date, which means the date of advertisement you can begin to start working on your solicitation. The supplier response due date is the date that the bid is going to be open. That was another thing that we had to adjust to in eProcurement was the terminologies all changed. Okay, so being that we know that there's an advertisement date, but a response date, I mean, okay, what is that? What is a response date? Well, that simply means that's the day that you can begin to work on your solicitation. And the supplier response due date, that's the date that the bid opens. So we've always said we have a bid opening. We have a bid opening reading, not a response due reading. So, terminology changed, and so we had to get very acclimated to what things mean. And then here are your deadline for questions. Now, the deadline for questions is simply that. You have from a time to a time to submit your questions to the specialist, to be answered by the specialist when they answer them, but you can't submit your questions after the questions due date. You have to submit your questions within the time that the bid is opened up until before it is read. Okay.
So you mentioned that there was, where was it? You could submit a question and there was an online discussion. Does that match up to this? Is that the online discussion would be before the due date, the response date?
You have to submit your question as an online discussion, and it's definitely before the bid opens.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, definitely. And then here you see details. And details with the symbol. And the symbol are the eyeglasses, and the eyeglasses is simply the PDF. So you click on the eyeglasses, and then you'll get a PDF. I opened up one. And so this is what your solicitation is going to look like. Okay. So from top to bottom, it tells you that it's a commodities and what your solicitation number is, and that it is a bid, right? It gives you your specification number and the description of the solicitation. Again, that's your title here. That's your title. That's your specification number with your title, as well as the actual specification number. Who is the department that is putting out the solicitation? It is police. It is telling you that on November the 4th of 2019, this bid will be read. Okay, that's the date of the bid opening. Bid opening, supplier response due date. Okay, please get your bids in early. Please don't wait till 10 o'clock the day of the bid is open, because please don't do it at 9 o'clock the morning of the bid opening, because anything can happen, right? We've had system glitches, we've had malfunctionings, we've had vendors have malfunctionings, and then they weren't able to submit their electronic bid, right? So we ask that you start your bid early and you get it in early. You can start your bid, you can change your mind, your bid will be in a draft status, you can go back in, you can change it when it's active already, you submitted it already, you can go back in there and you can make changes to it. You will get a new solicitation number. What happens to the old solicitation number that was active, it turns into a draft, and your new then you'll get a new solicitation number that is now the active solicitation. But here it speaks to your questions, or your deadline for questions. It tells you who is the buyer. There is no correspondence between the vendor and the police department who is letting out the contract. The correspondence and the dialogue and the online discussions are between the vendor and the buyer, and procurement. That's the vendor's name, the buyer's name is Stacy Stewart, along with her email address and her phone number. For this particular bid right here, she did not have a pre-bid opening at all. There's NA there. Here we tell you how to register in eProcurement and to allow 3 business days. When you open up the PDF and you decide that you do want to submit an electronic solicitation and you're not registered again, I have 3 business days to get you in, to make sure that you can submit your solicitation. And then we have all the terms. And this is what your solicitation is going to look like. We're going to walk through how to submit one. I'm looking at this and I want to see how many lines it is. I'll speak to that. 15 lines. So this is all the top half of this was speaking to all the lines, and then down in here is where you get to the grit of what the solicitation and all of the special conditions and the instructions to bidder and all those things are here following this table of contents. So that is speaking to the PDF. And that PDF was found right here. I took the first one, so it's for the provider. So that's speaking to the abstract, which is your listing of active bid solicitation. We went through online training. We went through help. Now I'm going to log in. Is Power Construction, are you Power Construction? Is Power Construction coming in, Jackie?
Sorry.
Did Power Construction, who signed up, did they come in? No, no.
Yeah.
Your interest in the architectural engineering, is there something that's out now?
There is not. There was a structural engineering services for the Department of Water Management, but I think that bid opening was just, or the submittal was just like 2 days ago. But I don't see anything out right now. Because we also work with Department of Water Management and Department of Aviation.
Okay.
So I'm assuming those are probably pilot as well.
I asked because I would have done a live.
Oh, okay.
Well, there is a solicitation you're working on for the electrical motors for the MWRD.
For who?
MWRD.
I'm sorry, sir, could you please pass the mic down to that gentleman? Pass it down the line. Oh, did she?
Yeah, I didn't
She
want
said,
the
don't
static.
go to, she said, that's okay.
I didn't want the static.
We'll be friendly. What is it, sir?
There is a solicitation you're working on for electrical motors for MWRD, for the large motors. Which is,
MWRD.
right, water management.
Oh, okay.
Right.
Do you know the solicitation number?
Let me see, I might be able to, I can find it, it takes a couple minutes, right, I find it.
So, wait a minute, let me know that.
Let me send
One,
it.
yeah, that might be
Thank you.
something wrong.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, I got it.
It only happens like when you cut yours off, then I can put this one on. It only happens.
Oh, I'll turn it off.
But that's okay. I'll keep going. He's gonna find it and then we'll holler it real loud so everybody can.
Don't make me laugh out loud. Ma'am, are you currently a vendor with the city of Chicago?
We do have an IPG number, I'm just not sure.
IPG,
Yeah. No, that's right, exactly. So I was like, I don't think that's the same number.
okay, no.
But we are certified with the city.
Okay, certification, okay.
Right.
Yeah, you have to be you have to be registered vendor.
Okay.
Okay, all right. So what I want to show you is that once you register, you got your user ID, which is generally your email address, and your password, then you're able to log in, and this is where you'll log in. You'll see that, right now I'm in a test instance. You'll be in what we call production. Right here I'm in testing, it's telling me that I'm in J. Yours will say apps prod. That means that you're in a production instance of Oracle. So then you're able to log in. So I'm going to log in as a test vendor. will do the same. And our text vendors, this, in our Oracle world, we have, in our main menu, we have tons of responsibilities, right? And we have a work list. And our work list is filled with information. Read this, see that, do this, right? You guys will too. You'll have a main menu with only 2 responsibilities. Your 2 responsibilities are iSupplier portal with invoice creation and online bidding. I'll just walk you through that right quick. The iSupplier portal are all things supplier. Yes, sir.
I have a PO number.
Hold it. I don't need a PO number. I need a RFQ number.
It's not out yet, but they're working on it. So I thought
Oh.
maybe you can work on the previous version, which was out.
Yeah, I think I have an RFP number for a different one,
Okay.
so,
It's a solicitation
yes.
that is going to be having a bid opening soon.
Oh, it's out now. It's
It's
open
out.
now.
Are you a delegate vendor?
Uh,
What's your company name?
so we're Alliance Chicago, we're working on getting the registration ready.
Oh, okay.
So,
Okay. So, hold on, let me go back home. I'm going back home to get to home. So, again, iSupplier portal with invoice creations, all things vendor related, okay? You get home, and so here you have 4 tabs, 5 tabs, okay? And this is your home page. This home page right here means I have bidded on something right here, okay? I've done something inside of here. That's what this page is for. Then you have orders, any orders that you have in with the city. Shipments, anything that you are expecting, that you send out to the city. Here, admin, all things vendor, right? So your vendor record lives here at this tab, and here is where, on your right side, profile management, you can look at your company profile, you can upload any documents that you want to be a part of your vendor record with the city. Here's your address book, you can change it. Here at contact names, you can add contacts or you can inactivate people who are no longer with the company. Business classifications, procurement doesn't use it, but the delegate agencies do. So I'm gonna come out of there, I'm gonna go back home. Oh, right quick. Preferences. I'm gonna click on preferences. Down here at the bottom, HTML mail with attachments, okay? You want to hit apply for that. What this does is it allows you to get any emails that's part of your online discussion to your email box, right? So you may not be, you could be traveling. You on the road, you on a plane, you're out, but you have an interest in the RFQ. You've already submitted your solicitation, but you want to know, you want to be aware and informed of when amendments come, addendums and things of that nature. It's going to come in your online message in Oracle, but you want it to also come in your personal mailbox so that you get it at real time, right? Because you don't have access to Oracle right now. So you do want to go to preferences here on the blue ribbon, and you want to come down here and make sure that your notifications are HTML mail with attachments and hit apply. Okay, I'm going to come off of that, and I'm going to go back home here. And we are on online bidding. You click the family tree, you get sourcing, click the plus button again, sourcing homepage. Now again, work list. Online discussion, see, I have online discussion message. That's here. But if this is test instance. If my email preferences are set, my notifications are set, this online message is also going to come in my work email. Okay? Yours is going to come in your personal email. or whatever email address is your username or email that you have acclimated to Oracle, that's where it's gonna come. So now again, sourcing homepage. And so it's saying that I have bidded on something, which I have. I had training yesterday, so I had to make a few things with them to do. Okay, so now here is your search, open solicitations. Terminology, change. Title means spec number. Title means spec number. So you can do a search by the specification number. We're going to go to the drop-down menu. I'm going to select number. And so the number is any active solicitation that I may want to bid on. What's your number, love?
7024, comma 1.
Oh, 7020, the one I just put the one?
7024.
Okay. I'm gonna put 7024 in there. I don't know that it's a comma 1, okay?
Oh.
So, again, you're on your negotiations tab. You're going to go to search open solicitations. You just follow the line. We're going to search by number, which is the solicitation number, but you can also search by title, which is the spec number, okay? You put your solicitation number in there, and then you hit go. You just follow the line. Then hit go. So it's not coming up for me in test. Let me go back to negotiations. I'm going to see if I can find it in the full list. Sometimes if you search for it by number, you may have to look to see if you can find it in the full list. 7024. Oh, it's not coming up for me in that. Our testing instances, just so you know, is a snapshot of all items in production at the time that they cloned it. So this was cloned, our last clone date was, I want to say, the middle part of August. So as a testing vendor, I can't bring up that fresh.
Okay, this one's definitely more newer than that, so.
Yeah.
Okay.
See if I can. Let me see if I can do it.
It's I see it on that list right now, actually.
Yeah, it's on the abstract. Yes, it's on the abstract. It's here, right? So yeah, it was advertised in August, and we cloned. We cloned in August. It was advertised back in October.
Okay.
But I can go do something else. As a test vendor, I'm going to go in production. Schools is outside. Can you hear them? It makes me a little sad. online bidding, sourcing homepage. It's not in my, these are, what I'm working on. These are in production, testing, and actually in production. I'm in production right now. I can't submit this bid because it will be red. So I can't submit it, but I can play with it up until we hit submit, up until you have to hit submit. Again, I'm not searching by spec number, which is the word title. We're going to search by number, and it's 7024, which is your RFQ number. And then you hit go. So it populates for me because it is an active solicitation that I can actually submit a bid on. So now, I get phone calls. I'm in Oracle and I've logged in, I'm in Oracle now and I can see the solicitation. I've opened it up, but it won't let me submit a bid because you first have to select it and then you must respond. If you click on number, which is the solicitation number, it's going to just give you the details of the solicitation. It's not going to allow you to respond. Now, left to right, we have to select it. Here's our RFQ number. Our RFQ number is 7024, the young lady gave me. But when I put in 7024, it reads 7024, comma 1. Why is there a comma there? Something happened. Don't be alarmed. Just, it'll show you what happened when we go in. It's giving me the, here's your title. Make sure this is what I want to submit a bid on. And then you have time left, 3 days, 21 hours. This looks like this could be an RFQ. I'll see what I can do with it. It is because it's blind. We, procurement, are responsive. Ours will read sealed. Okay? All procurement contracts, they're sealed. Delegates, they're blind. Okay? I don't know what I'm going to be able to do with this young lady. I'm not
That's
sure.
fine. No
Okay.
worries.
So here, your company responses is 0. Once you submit your bid, it's in draft. Once you even just started, when you started, you keyed in something here. Your response number is going to be 1, right? And the specialist can see, the specialist can also see when companies have have submitted a solicitation on something, because they'll have a record of a company's responses. It'll tell them how many vendors have actually bidded on it, on what they can see on their side, okay? But your bid can't be read by another vendor, okay? Yes, sir.
I'm sorry, this window is what a vendor sees or you see, or you log in?
This is what the vendor sees.
Okay, so shouldn't be all responses all the time blind, or is there another?
No, sir. No. All responses. That column means, that's why I'm telling you, this blind tells me off the top that this is a delegate agency contract, because procurement's responses are read sealed. Okay? So, let me see. I want to pick something that does not have a lot of lines, because we do not have time.
Sorry, I just had a quick question.
Yes, ma'am.
On the previous screen where it said your responses, right
Yes.
next, is that,
That monitor, I'm sorry, wait. Yes.
yeah, so where it says your company's responses,
Yes.
is that every response that you've made for like every contract, or is that like every time that you've
Every
opened
time,
this
because
file?
what will happen is, if you go in and if you edit it,
Okay,
then you created another response, but it's still the same response number
okay,
until you change it.
okay,
If you submit it, if it was active,
uh-huh,
if you submitted it and it was an active draft,
uh-huh,
then you'll get a new number.
okay,
That one goes away
okay,
and it creates new.
I guess like I guess what my question is if they receive it and see, oh, your company's response is 14 because that's how many times you went and edited this, like, is that gonna hurt us?
No, because you can save and save often and make as many changes as you want to
Okay.
before the date of the bid open.
But it'll log how many times
Yeah,
I've changed
yeah,
it.
we can see that.
Well, like, that's what I'm saying though, is so
We
like,
can see it,
right, so would you
but we
rather?
don't care.
Then why log it?
Can't speak to that.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, what if your data entry's wrong? What if your numbers change?
No, right, it's
You know,
just,
what if it's a 100
okay.
line item document and you've made changes from the time that it advertised before it's submitted, and you made some changes in your quantity amount or something.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We have 100 line items.
Did you turn it on?
My, I must have died.
Okay, keep going.
Yeah, it died. Yeah, so, yeah. No, don't worry about it. What we like to see is that, there's an interest there.
Okay.
There's an actual interest there. So, it's 100, we have contracts that have 500 lines or more, depending on what the contract is, especially in construction, labor related stuff. So, yeah. Don't let it. You don't want the vendor to see that you've been in it 14 times. Another vendor, so vendors can't see.
Okay.
Only you can see. Yeah. We wouldn't scrutinize your efforts, not at all. I'm trying to find something that, let me see, I don't know what, let's see, I don't, no, I can't do this because I want you guys to see what our contracts look like. But, right here, because it's reading negotiations 7024 has amendments that requires your acknowledgement. Do you want to proceed? You'll say yes. That's what the 7024, 1 is about, right? Because it began as 24, and now it's telling you, it's informing you that there's an amendment, and so that's the 1. You must acknowledge it. Now, the thing to acknowledging and the thing to responding, for one, you must respond in order to submit your bid. That's off the top. For two, when there is a comma number, you have to acknowledge it because now your name is already on the takeout list, right? Once you hit respond, your name is on the takeout list at that point. But then, because your name is on the takeout list, you have to be notified when there is an amendment, when there's an addendum and or a clarification. So it's important, you must acknowledge it, because if you don't, then that means that you are not submitting a correct bid because you didn't acknowledge the amendment or the addendum. I'm gonna click no, and I'm sorry, I'm still trying to find out. We are over time at this time. Do we have time? You got 15 minutes or so, if I can see if I can find something to bid on. I just don't want to bid on anything that, let's see. Let me just